Hi, this is Coach D from Trifinity Fitness, and today we're going to go over how to change a flat tire. If you do it right, it can be simple, it can be fast, and you can also keep your hands clean. So the first step in this is, well, we're going to do a rear tire, a rear wheel, because that's what gives people the most problems. Front goes a lot easier, so again, today we'll go ahead and do the rear wheel. The first step you want to do is, even maybe before you get off the bike, let's say you're cruising down, you've got a slow flat, and you realize you're going to have to get off and change it. Even before you get off the bike and stop pedaling, try to remember to shift down into your small cog in the back. That would be, in other words, your biggest gear, smallest cog in the back, and also the small chain ring in the front. If you do that, you're going to save yourself a lot of hassle when it comes time to trying to get the wheel off the frame. So we've done that, and now we're off the bike. The second step is what I call the 3 B's: bottle, bag, and brakes. That's right, bottle, bag, and brakes. When I say bottles, what we're talking about here, I just want to push these down so that when I lay the bike down, the water doesn't leak out of the bottles. Bag, I open up the bag, assuming that's what you have, and I pull out the tools that I'm going to need. That would be a regulator, a CO2, a couple of tire tools, and a spare tube. And just you can put those on the ground next to the bike. And then and then the last B was brakes. So brakes, what we mean here is, most brakes have some sort of quick release. So you go ahead and open that up, and that's going to bring the brake calipers a little wider for us, and it'll be a lot easier to get the wheel out. So again, bottles, bags, and brakes. Okay, the next step is to come down and undo the quick release like so, and screw the other side of the screwer a few times so that you're giving yourself lots of leeway. Now, step next is to go ahead and grab the right below the seat post here, and at the same time watch what my thumb does. I'm at the end of the screwer. I'm going to pick it up, and with my thumb I'm just going to press so that the chain comes out from the cassette, and then I'm going to feed the chain other side of the wheel, and I'm going to lie the bike down so that the derailleur side is up. You never want to put a bike down with the derailleur side down, because you can bend the cage and cause some problems with your shifting. Okay, so I don't really have a flat, so let's let the air out of this. All right. So I'm going to take my 2 tire tools, and depending on how much wear and tear you have on your tire, or how tight it is, what type of wheel you're using, sometimes you really only need one of these tools to get the tire off the rim. And I think that's going to be the case with this. So I'll just go ahead and put this down for now. And you take the wedge side of the tool, and you put it seat it right there underneath the bead, and then you pop that out. And if it's loose enough like my tire is, I can just, with one tool, go all the way around 360 degrees. All right, so this is an example when we probably do need a couple of tools. So I'm going to put the second one in, pull them both out at the same time. Like so. Now we're ready to go. I'm holding the first one, and then I'm going to run the second one all the way around the tire. It will unbeat it on one side. So right now we've got one side of the tire all the way off the bead. So then what we do is, I like to start from the opposite side of the stem and pull the tube out. So we're leaving the tire on the rim for now. We're going to pull the tube all the way out, and then the last part is where the stem is. And then you want to toss the tube a little further away from where your new tube is. So here's my old tube, and trust me, I've confused it with the past. We don't want to put a bad tube in. So I've got the new tube. Since this is a new tube, it's completely flat. It'll help if you undo the valve stem, put a couple of puffs of air. That'll make it a lot easier to form. Then I find where the hole is on the rim up here. Place the valve stem directly into the hole, and then I go around and I place the tube inside the tire all the way around. Just like that. Okay, so right now I've got the tube sort of loosely fit against the tire. So I'm going to start at where the valve is. I'm going to press the valve stem up. That pushes the tube a little closer to the top of the tire. And from here on out, I'm going to go around and seed the tire onto the rim. And at the same time, I'm making sure that the tube is underneath the tire and not pinched against the rim. So you do it from both sides. Now, depending on what type of wheel you have, especially the carbon wheels, the aero wheels, they can get pretty tight when you start to reach this last part. If mine doesn't do that. It's fairly loose, but we're going to pretend it is. If that was the case, if I press it down and I start back up at the top, and I just slowly stretch out the tire towards the bottom, that will ultimately give me some more play. And when I get to the end, then I just roll the tire over the rim, and we're set. Now, very important step. Before we inflate this tire with the tube, we want to make sure that we haven't pinched the tube against the tire and the rim. So what you do is, you can come a little closer, shoot it down. What we're going to do here is pinch the tire and go around, starting at the stem, go around and look on both sides just to assure that we don't have, that we can't see any of the tube against the rim, the edge of the rim. Because if you do, you can pinch the tube, and when you put air in it, you'll end up with a blowout, and you'll find yourself doing this all over again. So I've gone around all the way to the stem again, so I think we're good. I like to inflate the tube and the tire before I put the wheel back on the frame, just in case I've got an issue, then I don't have to take the wheel off again. So I'm going to grab my CO2 and my inflator. I prefer to put the inflator on before I put the CO2. That's just in case for some reason when you start putting the CO2 in, it breaks the seal and the air starts going out, and you can't be using the air. When it's already fit onto the valve stem, if anything happens that way, you're good to go. So this particular type of inflator has a regulator valve release, a knob there. So I'm pushing it in. I'm actually holding the regulator, not the CO2. This is going to get very cold when the air comes out. So you're going to hold the regulator and go ahead and inflate the tube. For most tires, you want to get all the air out, or very close to it. Then I'm ready to take the inflator off stem, and that can be a little tight. Be sure to screw the valve stem back on so you're not going to lose your air. If you have a cap, you can put the cap on, and then you're ready to go. Just before I put it on the bike, I'm going to give it a spin just to make sure here that the tire is seated properly and it looks good to go. Okay. Then once again, I'm going to grab the frame from right below the seat post, pivot it up on the front wheel, okay, front wheel, and then with my the cassette on the right side, then I'm going to place the chain over the smallest cog on the cassette. We're doing that because we know that's the gear it's in. That's where we took it off. And it'll go on a lot easier. So I just press down a little bit, not jamming it, but letting gravity more than anything else. Chain right over the cog, and then it pops right in. Some frames are a little tight. If that's the case, what you can do is grab these seat stays and chain stays and just give it a little bit of tug, and the wheel should pop right into place. Now I want to make sure that I have it completely centered into the frame. Don't worry so much if it's centered in the brake, because it's possible the brake could have got hit to one side. You want to focus on making sure that the wheel is centered against the frame. And then tighten the skewer all the way down. Then what I do is grab the brake pads, squeeze them together, and then I put the quick release back on. So that makes sure that it stays centered. Pick up the wheel, give it a spin. Just, again, making sure that everything is centered. It looks pretty good. I'm going to tap the rear brake, let loose so it's not grabbing the brake. Looks good. Looks good to go here. Okay. So then now, if you can see that what happened here is often the case, the chain was dropped from the front chainring. I promised we weren't going to get our hands dirty, and I'm going to keep that promise. So instead of grabbing the chain with my bare hands, if you go back to your tire tool, you notice that has a little hook on the end of it. I like that hook because I can actually grab the chain with it easy enough, seat it back onto the small chain ring, and let it go around. The tire tool drops off, and you are good to go. Be sure and pick up your other tube and get all your tools back in and put them in your bag, and then you're ready to hit the road again. Good luck, and we'll see you on the road.